I never thought refusing to open a gate would end with someone in handcuffs crying in front of 50 well-dressed strangers. I never thought a quiet afternoon by the lake would turn into flashing lights accusations and a woman screaming that I had ruined her life. But the moment those cuffs clicked shut, I realized this was never about a gate at all. I live by a lake because I wanted quiet. Real quiet. The kind you only get when the water is still. The wind moves slow through the trees, and nobody feels entitled to tell you what to do on your own land. I bought that property years ago, long before the surrounding neighborhood even existed. Back then it was just dirt roads, trees, and water. No HOA, no committees, no people knocking on doors with clipboards and fake smiles. It's just me and my daughter now. After my wife passed, this place became more than land. It became a line in the sand, something stable, something I could protect when everything else felt like it had already been taken from me. That gate at the end of my driveway wasn't decorative. Heavy steel bolted deep into concrete with a sign that said, "Private Property" in plain black letters. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't rude. It was honest. The new neighborhood went up fast. Big houses, manicured lawns, and eventually, an HOA. Lakeside View Association. I stayed out of it because I wasn't part of it. Legally. On paper. Clean and clear. They knew that. Or at least they should have. The problem had a name. Linda Harper. Linda was the kind of woman who wore sunglasses like armor and spoke like every sentence was an order. She ran the HOA the way some people run a small kingdom. Meetings every week. Notices taped to doors. Fines for grass that was half an inch too long. Most neighbors tolerated her because it was easier than pushing back. A week before everything blew up, I found a notice slipped under my door. No knock, no conversation, just paper. It said, "Residents must provide shared lake access for an upcoming community event." I actually laughed out loud when I read it. Not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. My land wasn't part of their HOA. Never had been. Never would be. I tossed it in the trash and thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The day it happened started like any other. Sun high water calmed my daughter inside doing homework. Then I heard engines. Not one or two. A lot. I stepped out onto the porch and saw a line of SUVs stretching down the road. Doors opening. People stepping out dressed like they were headed to a wedding or a fundraiser. Trays of food. Coolers. Bottles clinking. Then I saw her. Linda stood right at my gate, sunglasses on, arms crossed like she'd already decided how this was going to go. She didn't knock. She didn't greet me. She waved one manicured hand and said, "Open the gate. Now." Not asked, ordered. I told her calmly that this was private property, that the gate was staying closed. I kept my voice even because I've learned that loud people feed on reactions. Her smile tightened. "You don't understand. This is a community event. You can't deny access." I told her I could, and I was. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. "If you don't open that gate in the next 10 seconds, I'll have you fined and evicted." That's when I pulled out my phone and turned on the camera. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten her. I just said, "Then you'd better call the cops." That set her off. She spun around to her guests and shouted that I was threatening them, that I was unstable. Someone actually did call the police. My daughter peeked through the window, eyes wide, and I gave her a small nod. I told her it was okay, even though part of me already knew it wasn't going to be simple. When the patrol cars showed up, Linda rushed toward them like she'd been waiting for her cue. She demanded they arrest me for blocking community property. She waved a thick folder full of papers with the HOA logo stamped on top. I could tell from 10 feet away they were freshly printed. The officer asked me if I had proof the land was mine. I reached into my pocket and handed him a folded copy of the deed. Signed, stamped, dated years before the HOA ever existed. The look on Linda's face was priceless. Frozen, like someone had unplugged her. The officer told her the land wasn't under HOA control. He told her she was trespassing. He told her she needed to leave. That should have been the end of it. Instead, she smirked and said she knew people in City Hall. I told her she was on camera trespassing. The cops left after warning her. Not me, her. The moment their cars disappeared, her smile vanished. She leaned in and whispered that I'd regret it. Then she said something that hit harder than I expected. She mentioned my military record, my wife, things she had no business knowing. She looked me dead in the eye and said maybe I wasn't stable enough to own property like this. That was the first time I felt it. That doubt. That flicker of exhaustion. The kind that makes you wonder if peace is worth the fight. My daughter stood behind me holding her phone, whispering if she was allowed to be there. And then Linda did the one thing that pushed it from ugly to unforgivable. She turned to her guests and shouted that I was armed. Phones came out. Gasps. Someone started dialing again. I raised my hands and said calmly that no one was armed, but they needed to step off my land. Linda didn't care. She went to her car, opened the trunk, and started setting up tables. Banners that read HOA Summer Celebration. Speakers. Music blasting. They turned my driveway into a party out of pure spite. I stood there watching people dance and drink on land I worked my entire life to protect. And for a moment, I almost gave in. I almost thought about opening the gate just to make it stop, just to keep my daughter from seeing me dragged through another fight. I went inside instead. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the floor longer than I'd like to admit. I asked myself if I was wrong, if standing my ground was worth the stress, if maybe I should just let it go. Then I checked the security footage. Every threat, every lie, every fake claim, clear as day. That's when I remembered something. Loud people rely on noise. I rely on proof. I sent the footage to an old friend at the sheriff's office, not as a favor, as documentation. The music outside kept getting louder. Linda laughed too loudly. Her guests looked uncomfortable. They kept glancing at the cameras along my fence. Then I heard engines again, different ones. County trucks. Code enforcement stepped out. Calm, professional. They asked about the unauthorized gathering. Linda tried her papers again, tried to explain, tried to command. The officer told her the land belonged to me. He told everyone not on the deed to step back immediately. The party fell apart in seconds. Chairs folded, plates dropped. People avoided eye contact as they packed up. Linda didn't move. She stared at me like this was personal, like I'd betrayed her. She accused me of calling them, of embarrassing her. I walked toward the gate slowly and told her she'd done that herself. That's when she pulled out the badge. She claimed she worked for county planning, that she had authority. The officer took the badge, looked at it, and said quietly, "This is fake." The silence after that was unreal. He told her impersonating a government official was a felony. He told her to turn around. As they cuffed her, her guests filmed, the same people who had laughed with her minutes earlier. She spat that I ruined her. I told her the truth. She did that herself. When the cars drove off, the lake went quiet again. My daughter slipped her hand into mine and asked if it was really over. I looked at the gate, the water, the land that had been mine long before anyone thought they could take it. I told her yes. Sometimes standing your ground doesn't make you loud. It just reminds the wrong people where their power actually ends.